What's up guys, Romsicle here, and today we are taking a look at two brand new switches from Mode Design. And of course we are talking about their new reflex and signal switches. But before we get into the specs and the pricing, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN, the #1 virtual private network. Watch content anywhere around the world without getting blocked while keeping your IP secure. Get 3 months free with a 1-year plan with the link down below, while getting a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied. And now, back to the switches. The Reflex Yellow is their linear switch, while the Signal Red is their tactile switch. Both of them have a listed bottom out force of 63.5 grams with an estimated 50 gram actuation force. They have the typical 2mm actuation distance and a 4mm bottom out distance. These switches cost 55 cents a piece with 3 quantities to choose from, so they're definitely a mid-tier price switch similar to other Durocks switches. So these switches are made by Durock, and taking a closer look at both of them, they have a smoky housing composed of a polycarbonate top housing, a nylon bottom housing, and a POM stem on top of a gold spring. The stems of both switches are lightly factory lubed with an oil, which is a positive for those who don't lube their switches and a con for those who do. Some interesting facts are that the stem of the reflex switches are made using the same mold as the Alpaca V2s, and the signal switches are supposed to be an alternative to the MX Ergo clear switches, which are custom MX clear switches with a lighter spring. These switches are very well built for sure. There's not much stem wobble, and the housing is nice and tight even after opening them up to lube them. The signal switches also have some pre-travel before the actuation bump. Since these switches are made by Durock, you can expect the same quality and sound signature. And despite these switches having a POM stem, it doesn't sound too scratchy at all even after fully cleaning these switches. I personally don't like pre-lube switches, but this is what the switches sound like right out of the bag. You might not have heard it in the sound test, but pre-lube switches with a viscous lube tend to have this clicky or bubbly sound effect that isn't the most desirable for switches. But these switches are definitely smooth. There's little to no scratch on these switches on regular use, but this is kind of expected since they are pre-lubed. But of course, as an enthusiast, I want to use my own preferred lube. So I cleaned out these switches with some rubbing alcohol, got them squeaky clean to stock, and then applied Krytox 205 grade 0 to both of these switches. I lubed everything for the reflex linears, and for the signal tactile switches, I lubed everything except for the metal leaves. And now you can hear the difference. So between the pre-loop switches and the custom loop switches definitely sounded and felt better, especially with the linear switches. It sounds cleaner, has a slightly deeper tone, and the actuation force on the tactile switches actually drops a little bit, so it's a little easier to type on. And that can be a pro or a con depending on how heavy you type. And when it comes to the typing experience, I have nothing bad to say about these switches. I felt very comfortable using both of these switches, whether it was for gaming or for typing, making these switches a very good all-arounder. I didn't have any accidental presses, and the tactility on the signal switches were soft enough for gaming, but still gave you a good amount of feedback when it came to typing sessions. So are these switches good? Well, it depends on what we're looking at. If we're looking at build quality, then these switches are awesome. They're nice and robust, and the switch tolerances are low, so every single key press is giving you a consistent sound. It sounded really good and felt great after I lubed it with Krytox. But as for the stock sound, I don't particularly enjoy it because the bubbly effect just doesn't sit well with me, and a big part of enjoying a switch is the sound it makes. Obviously, this issue is something I can easily fix myself, but I think it's in the company's best interest to give us an unlubed version for those who do have a lube preference. But if the sound doesn't bother you, then these are some great switches to get. And you're also getting a pre-applied lube application, which is awesome. A good alternative to the reflex linear switches would be some Gateron yellows, and for the signal tactile switches, they're pretty much some lighter box royals with some pre-travel. If you're interested in these switches or some Gateron switches, you can check out the links down below. And don't forget about our sponsor, ExpressVPN. With this link right here, you can get 3 free months with a 1-year plan, and you're getting a more flexible and a more secure browsing and watching experience onto the internet with just one click of a button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.